Today is Friday, October 11, 2019. I'm broadcasting live from the Potter's House in Denver, where I will be hosting a School Choice is the Black Choice Town Hall later this evening. We'll be live streaming right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. But on today's show, a mistrial declared in the hate crime case against former police chief Frank Nucera. He's out of New Jersey. Prosecutors say they're going to retry him on these hate crime charges. Prince's estate calls out Donald Trump, saying, "Don't you dare play Purple Rain or any other music." He did so at his rally last night in Minneapolis. We'll tell you all about it. As of the second quarter of 2019, black home ownership is at the lowest rate it has been in 50 years. We'll talk to a leading black real estate organization about what we can do about this. A conference featuring Bishop T.D. this weekend in Baltimore is trying to change the narrative in that city. We'll talk to the pastor of the church who is hosting Bishop Jakes. A black coach is fired for encouraging his team to use the N-word in New Orleans. He no longer has a job. And the Nobel Peace Prize is awarded to the Ethiopian Prime Minister. We'll share you all those details. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go. Folks, Roland Martin here, broadcasting live from the Potter's House in Denver, where I'll be hosting a School Choice is the Black Choice Town Hall later today. But let's get right to today's show. In New Jersey, a jury has declared a mistrial in the hate crimes trial of a former New Jersey police chief, Frank Nucera, who was accused of assaulting a handcuffed black teen because of intense racial animus. That jury deadlocked on federal hate crime assault and civil rights deprivation charges. Now, the same jury convicted him of lying to the FBI about the case, but declared the mistrial on the most serious charges. Federal prosecutors said Nucera was motivated by racial hatred when he slammed the teen's head into a door jamb during a 2016 arrest at a Bordentown hotel. He pleaded not guilty and retired in 2017 during the FBI investigation. The jury, which has 9 white people and 3 African Americans, deliberated more than 45 hours over the course of 8 days. Let's discuss this with our panel. Dr. Nyambe Carter, Department of Political Science, Howard University. Dr. Cleo Manago, political analyst, and also Kelly Bethea, communications strategist. All right, folks, first and foremost, Cleo, I want to go to you. It's very interesting. The jury convicts him, on lying to the FBI, but how do you not convict him again on the federal hate crime charges when this guy made a comment that Trump is the last resort to save white people? He has racial animus against African Americans, and it was abundantly clear how this guy was recorded by his own officers.
Well, all I can do is use conjecture. I imagine that the white people who are on the jury are apprehensive to give this guy a charge that has race relation to it, because they want to act like that's not an issue in this country. I think you know about the denial issue we have in this country regarding the problem of white supremacy. But the other charge that he did get away with doesn't have a racial context, so I think they preferred to give him something so they wouldn't look particularly bad. So they allowed him to get that, but didn't give him the issue that was the worst thing, because that might disturb a precedent of people getting away with racist behavior while in a uniform. So that's my analysis of that situation.
Dr. Carter, bottom line here is you have a former law enforcement official who clearly lied to the FBI, racial animus, how he mistreated this black teen. And again, it's one of those cases where 9 white folks on the jury, 3 African Americans, well, these juries are just unwilling to call out these officers. I reminded the case in Connecticut where a black man was kneeling, going down, or to kneel, was going down to the ground, had his hands up, and the guy kicks him in the head, knocks him unconscious, and the jury found that cop. And it was on video. The jury found that cop to be not guilty.
Well, I mean, I think this is a pattern of behavior, and I agree with Cleo to the extent that this jury thought that he did something wrong. They didn't want to actually find him guilty of the worst part of this, which is doing this because the alleged perpetrator was a black teen. I think this pattern of sort of papering over what police officers do in the line of duty is a difficult one, but it's one that juries seem unwilling to disrupt. I mean, this pattern of going after the most vulnerable, the weakest, and those who are most easily singled out, I mean, I think it's something we've seen, whether it was Connecticut or New Jersey, Maryland, Pennsylvania. We see this as a nationwide epidemic, and I think until cops and others like them start to face real consequences, this kind of stuff will continue, in part because there's nothing that is really going to change this behavior unless there are real penalties. This guy got a chance to retire, and I'm assuming he's retired with full benefits, so that means his pension is untouched, all the sort of benefits that come from him being a police officer that gave him the cover to abuse his power, to harm the public and harm this young man in particular. And we don't know how many other people are out here who have faced this officer at some point in their career or in their lives who've been similarly mishandled. I mean, I think until we start sending a real message that this is going to have a real consequence, we'll continue to see this. And I think the hate crimes enhancement is oftentimes one of those things left on the table because jurors are just reluctant to believe that somebody with racist intent is working on a police force and using that to drive their decisions about law enforcement. But the data would suggest that it's probably more common than we appreciate. I
don't think jurors care about how common it is or is not. They do not want to find a white officer for hurting somebody black. Well, I mean, I think the idea of, and I think it's part of the language we use. We always say these cops are a bad apple. They're not usual, they're unusual. And I think even in this cop's case, they would say, well, he was just this one guy. This is not about sort of the crime or what the alleged crime was or what the initial or precipitating incident was. This thing happened, police officers were called, and this guy may have been overzealous, but it's not a part of a larger behavior. So I would disagree that jurors don't care. I just don't think that for many white jurors, and we don't know what the black jurors in this case said. I mean, we saw what they did at Amber Geiger's case, so it's no claim, we can't claim that just because there were black jurors there, they felt differently. But we can say that I think people have a denial, and I think using this language of a bad apple or this was a bad misstep, it leads us to make these false assumptions that this stuff is not more usual than we all know it is.
Before I go to Kelly, I want to pull up the video of Frank Nucera's attorney. Here's what he had to say.
We were hoping for a not guilty verdict on those. I still believe that would have been the correct verdict, but obviously this jury worked very hard over 8 days deliberating. Certainly, I think even in and of itself, if you can talk about something for 8 days, that's inherently indicative of reasonable doubt. But I respect their process, and I know they worked hard. So we're glad that we got a mistrial on those two most serious counts. As to the conviction on the least serious of the 3 counts, I still have a difficult time reconciling that with the disposition of the other 2 counts. But again, I have to respect the jury's verdict at this point. We'll assess our options going forward on that. But I'm very glad today that at least for now, this weight has been lifted from Frank Nucera's shoulders. He's held his head high throughout this process. He's handled it with grace and dignity, and I'm glad the jury, at least some of the people on the jury, certainly saw it our way, and I think it was a good number of people.
Kelly, your thoughts?
His note about the 45 hours of deliberation equating to reasonable doubt to me is troubling because I don't think that's the case at all. If anything, I think it was the jury's possibly having a reckoning within themselves as to what the contents of this case entailed. You have to really face yourself in situations like this as a juror and kind of sort of put yourself in that police officer's shoes. Like, what would you do? What would you have done? What would a reasonable person have done in this situation? And I think the reason why it was a hung jury is because a lot of those jurors who, did not find him, liable for this, they probably thought that they would have done the same thing. And that's what scares people, is not the fact that they think that they're bad apples or anything. They think that they are the bad apple, and they don't want to punish somebody for something that they would have done themselves. And once people have that moment within themselves, then we can have a larger discussion as to what to do. But like my colleagues were saying, it's not a bad apple situation. It's not a predicament where there's a lone wolf. I know that narrative is thrown out there a lot. No, this is an inherently American problem, and we had Americans on that jury, and as Americans, they probably were like, I would have done the same thing, but I know he was wrong. I don't know what to do here. They probably felt that conflict within themselves.
Got it. All right, folks, let's go to our next story. Last night, Donald Trump held one of his hate rallies in Minneapolis, where he attacked Somali refugees as well as attacked Joe Biden. It was a typical Donald Trump rally. Something happening at the end of that rally. They played Prince's Purple Rain. Of course, Prince was born and raised in Minneapolis, and that did not sit well with the estate of Prince. They sent a statement out making it perfectly clear they do not want Donald Trump playing any of his music. They also did the same thing a year ago, and the campaign agreed they would not use his music. This is what the Prince folks tweeted out. They said that, of course, first of all, said the Trump campaign sent a letter to the estate last year saying, quote, without admitting liability and to avoid any future dispute, we confirm that the campaign will not use Prince's music in connection with its activities going forward. But again, the statement, though, from the estate, President Trump played Prince's Purple Rain tonight at a campaign event in Minneapolis, despite confirming a year ago that the campaign would not use it. They sent that letter to them and said, don't do it again. Bottom line is, look, Kelly, Prince did not like Donald Trump, did not agree with Donald Trump, and this estate is making it perfectly clear, like other artists have done, they want no part of their music being played at any Donald Trump event.
I don't understand why Donald Trump just doesn't leave well enough alone. It's obvious that when Prince was alive, he made it, like you said, perfectly clear that he was not a Trump supporter, didn't have anything to do with the Republican Party in general, even though he was, relatively apolitical as in regards to pretty much everything else outside of his music. But, right is right and wrong is wrong, according to what Prince's mentality was with this. And he did not want Donald Trump anywhere near his music. I don't understand why he felt the need to play such music at the rally, because I believe he's not supposed to anyway. Like, there's an injunction or something against Trump from playing the music. He just doesn't follow the rules at all. He doesn't feel like the rules apply to him.
Oh, shocking!
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm not surprised at all, but it is also incredibly insulting that one of this man's last wishes upon death is like, don't mess with my stuff. Well, and that's what he did.
And I think also that he picked that song.
Dr. Carter.
No, I'm just saying that he picked that song.
Other artists, Prince not the only. Well, first of all, he could have picked any Prince song, and they would have liked it. But again, so many artists have said, look, don't play my stuff at your rally. Bruce Springsteen said the same thing as well. Look, artists want no part of Thug in Chief.
Absolutely, and it is their right. And I think when you talk about something like music, which has the power to transcend, and that's why I say this, the choice of Purple Rain, which is a very personal song, but also has this deeply sort of spiritual message in it, that he would pick this and try to attach himself to Prince's or Bruce Springsteen's or any of these other artists' legacies who clearly
blatant Democrats.
Right, absolutely. Not only just Democrats, but people who don't like him, don't like his policies, and would have never supported his policies. And the fact that he says, you know what, I'm going to co-opt you for this message of hatred, for this message of division, I think says something about Donald Trump. This is the way he practices business. This is the way he lives his life. This is the way he governs, right? He just takes and plunders and worries about the consequences later. And I think it's important for artists and other people to say, stay away from my legacy, stay away from my material, because you best believe if they were co-opting his likeness and his image, he would be all over it. We saw what happened with Kathy Griffin and others, right? So I think artists need to be just as zealous in their removal of their image and their likeness and their music and their property from him as he has been with his own.
I think it's funny.
Cleo, one of the things that hold on, Cleo, 1 second. I do want to ask you about this here, because here he is in Minneapolis last night. There are 100,000 Somalis in Minneapolis. He attacks them, saying he was mad at Minneapolis for the election of Ilhan Omar. She was elected by a huge number. And then to make it clear that he is going to prevent more Somali refugees and others coming to the country, proud of having the lowest number of refugees in the United States in a number of years. This is a man who is speaking, and I keep telling people, he is speaking directly to white America and white fear when it comes to this whole issue of immigrants, and that's who he is targeting. And when he made those comments last night, you heard the roar of that crowd, because they blame refugees, they blame immigrants, they blame so many others for their own issues.
Well, not only do they blame them, they're interested in white control and no interruption to that. And they want people who are immigrant, not necessarily white immigrants, to stay away, because they don't want anybody messing with the white pool of control in this country. So that's the bottom line. I think that with the money that Trump supposedly have, he might have somebody write purple or orange rain or white rain, so he can have his own song, because he got the money to do that. But Trump is just consistent. I mean, we've been talking about Trump now since he's got in office, and he's doing his job. And I think it's important to mention, and you kind of referenced that he's not by himself. He has crowds that show up when he speaks, including places like Minneapolis. So and he's also someone who doesn't care about the rules. I mean, I think you mentioned this is the second time that he used that song, or used Prince's material. Well, hopefully he'll listen this time, who knows, but somebody to write Orange Rain for him and let him have his own song.
All right, folks, got to go to a break right now. When we come back, we're going to talk about housing among African Americans at its lowest point in 50 years. That's next. Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from the Potter's House in Denver. We'll be back in a moment. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. All right, folks, you've heard me talk a lot about marijuanastock.org. Why? Because I want to keep you informed of investment opportunities that make sense. We've all watched the growth of the cannabis industry. A recent report by New Frontier Data estimates the global cannabis market at more than $340 billion. We know that marijuana legalization is sweeping the country state by state. We also know that marijuana has a good cousin, the hemp plant, with a much higher concentration of CBD. That means hemp gives you all the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Until recently, hemp farming was practically illegal in the United States and heavily regulated by the DEA. However, the 2018 Farm Bill changed all of that, making it legal to grow hemp CBD in the United States, thus creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. What do they need? Land to grow all of the plants. I'm here in Colorado. It's been legal here, and trust me, it has been a booming business. This, of course, is the plan of our folks at 420 Real Estate. Their business model is simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. That's right, they are hemp CBD landlords, and you can get in on the action. The folks at 420 Real Estate have done a special for the Roland Martin Unfiltered family. Originally, the minimum investment level was $500, but you can invest in this crowdfunding campaign for as little as $200. That's right, $200 up to $10,000. And again, let's recap. This is a $340 billion global industry that is still growing. And you can participate with as little as $200. To invest, for more information, go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. Get in the game and get in the game now. Folks, one of the ways for Americans to actually build wealth in this country is through home ownership. And the black home ownership rate stands today, folks, at 40.6%. That is the lowest number in more than 50 years. In comparison, the home ownership rate for non-Hispanic whites reported by the U.S. Census Bureau is 73.1%. That represents more than a 30 percentage point difference and reflects the economic mountain African Americans have to climb to gain parity in achieving the American dream. We're joined now by the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, newly elected president, Donnell Williams, to discuss this disparity. And Donnell, glad to have you on the show. First and foremost, let's just be real. The housing crisis that took place since 2007 caused black folks to lose 53% of all black wealth. And when you look at what took place, forcing African Americans into subprime loans, the foreclosures, of course, and folks having to go from owning to renting, that is the biggest contributor in terms of why we are where we are today. And the reality is, and look, I don't care what anybody says out there, I was critical when it actually happened. The Obama administration did not do enough to deal with this issue of the home ownership crisis. I was covering it every step of the way. In fact, I've covered housing my entire career, going back to when I was in Austin, at the Austin American-Statesman, in Fort Worth, as a City Hall reporter, at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and other places as well. And now you have the Trump administration, and same thing, having no real substantive plan to deal with the housing crisis in this country, especially as it relates to African Americans.
I agree with you, Roland. I remember back in 2012 when I first met you, and we had this discussion then. But you're absolutely correct. I declared a cease and desist on the declining rates of black home ownership. Right now, we're at 40.6%, which is unheard of. It is hurting our generational wealth. It's hurting our economic growth. We're in trouble. And that's why I declared a war on the declining rates of black home ownership. We need to pull out all stops. We need to create allies. We need to create partnerships. We need to address this issue immediately. There is no time to wait on the sidelines. Everybody's got to be in this fight for black home ownership.
And so what can be done? What should be done? What should Fannie Mae and Freddie Mae, what should they be doing?
Well, we're at a point right now with the association, which is the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, where we have come up with solutions to actually help the declining rate. Right now, there are 1.7 million black millennials, low-hanging fruit, that make over $100,000 a year that do not own a home. We're looking at educating them, giving them the tools, the resources, helping them to empower themselves and mobilize so that we have a new growth spurt of homeowners coming up. We started a campaign under our 2,000,005 new black homeowners in 5 years campaign called HouseThenTheCar.com. HouseThenTheCar.com. That's where we're pushing our people. We're trying to get them ready, get them to understand DTI, get them to understand creating a budget, get them to understand credit, down payment assistance, and what have you, so that maybe we begin that turn, because you're in violation if you have a landlord and a Land Rover.
All right, I know our panel has some questions for you. Who's first up?
I'll go. I think this is a really interesting issue. As a homeowner who became a homeowner late in my life, right, in my 30s, I found the process really overwhelming. But one of the things I've been thinking about now that I'm no longer a first-time buyer, what exists for that buyer in the middle who's not a first-time buyer, who maybe is a move-up buyer, right, whose family is expanding or whose needs have changed? How do you help those folks retain ownership of what they may currently have, and then also purchase something else that may suit their life at that point in their life?
Well, we have an entire series to help people in that category, because interesting enough, the average age of a black homeowner is 48 years old. Home purchasers, 48 years old. We all on this panel understand that that's a little too late. We need to start earlier. But we have a series of classes to educate people on how they bequeath, how they transfer that wealth once they own it. We don't want to lose the wealth, because the average age of folks born before 1965, half of the black people owned their home before they were 50 years old. Now that number has totally reversed. Now we don't own our homes. So we're trying to show that entire generation, the baby boomers, if you call them, the baby boomers, how to transfer that wealth and how to do it smartly.
The people that I talk to in the community often don't know what the specific benefits are of home ownership, because if they have an apartment or they have a place to live and they got the Range Rover, they figure they're hooked up. I think it might be a good idea to specifically break down what the benefits are of home ownership. And I also want to know specifically what you meant, because I think other people want to know the same thing, is what does it mean that we're in trouble? So that's two questions. What are the elements of that in troubleness, and what are the benefits of home ownership?
Okay. Benefits of home ownership: generational wealth, security, financial security. Owning a home is the keystone of financial wealth. That's the first step for most of America. They came up with the American dream. This is the American dream is owning a home. They've been giving away land since the beginning, since we got here. So what I'm saying is that the keystone is owning that property. So owning that property then creates the opportunity to build, to get a job, get a business loan, to actually put your kids to college. All of those things, generational wealth, all of those things fall into owning that first home, creating that equity.
So allow me to also jump in here. One second. Allow me to jump in here because I think to also provide some context to that answer to the question Cleo just asked. When you talk about what is the benefits, in 2014 when the Wall Street Journal did their article on the fact that $23.09 billion in small business loans were handed out in 2013, black folks only got $385 million of those loans. One of the primary reasons was because of the loss of home ownership. For African Americans, when it comes to if you're starting a business and you're looking to go get capital, you're looking to get a loan, your most important collateral is likely going to be your home, the equity in your home. If you are renting, you don't have any equity. Here's the second thing. When you talk about security, when my parents retired more than 10 years ago, they were living in an apartment in Houston, and they were looking at fixed income, and they said, we're going to get a smaller apartment. I'm going, it's going to be smaller than this. Well, I still own my home in the Dallas area. I said, my house paid for. Y'all can live there. So they were able to move. So I have parents and a sister and her daughter, both living in a home that's paid for. Now, that actually assists them in terms of the ability to be able to live and not actually have to spend that amount of money. Third thing, which is also critically important, when you talk about home ownership. I bought that home in 1999, and it was around $122,000. Of course, we had the housing crisis where it dropped. Now that house is appraised at around $190,000. I've been having folks sending me text messages and calling me for the past 6 months trying to actually buy the home. Why? Because the housing stock in the country, you don't have as much as you did before. And so here it is. I could, if I wanted to, could sell that home right now for $190,000 or $200,000 and then be able to invest that money. And so if you're renting, you can't do that. You're just shelling out money to somebody else. And so I think, and so for the people who are out there, that's what you're talking about. And in fact, the other problem is when you talk about renting, because of the housing, the lack of housing in this country, one of the things that happened, Danelle, you know this, what happened was when those banks, when the so-called toxic assets, that actually, those were those home loans. And what they did was they got the federal government to give them that bailout, $12 billion bailout. They took that money and didn't focus on toxic loans. They basically built up their bottom line. Right. Then they went, wait a minute, we're in good shape. We're not going to get rid of those homes. So what do? They then turned around, sold those homes, blocks of 25 and 30,000 homes to hedge funds in Arizona, out California, in Texas. And now, Dr. Carter made her point, if you wanted to buy a home, you looking to go buy a home, you can't compete against the hedge fund. So they're forcing people to be renters, and people are actually spending more money right now in many places renting an apartment or renting a home than what the mortgage would actually cost them. And that, Danelle, is the problem that we're seeing in terms of why this is a huge issue. And so shelling out money renting doesn't get you anything when you're 25 and 30 and 35 and 40. And so guess what? When you get to be 50 like I am, you're not going to have any asset whatsoever. And then if I choose to retire, let's say in 20 years from now, go back to that same home, all I got to do is pay my property taxes. That's it, not a mortgage.
Correct. The funny thing about it is they want to push us towards renting, but the rental price is going up just as much as the home ownership, the mortgage amount that you would pay. So we're in betwixt and between, but we have to get into the mindset. At the Congressional Black Caucus, we did put on a national conversation on black home ownership. That needs to be done in every local city that we have a chapter in. The national conversation on black home ownership. It's time for us to change the conversation, and we have to get people on board with this. Because the security comes, I have a saying, the one who owns the land makes the laws. So we have to change that.
Yep. Absolutely. Kelly, you have a question?
I do. I definitely understand the predicament that we're in terms of home ownership, but as someone who would be a first-time home buyer, a large problem is the gentrification and the influx of prices, especially in the DMV area. So how do you reconcile that with, like, for instance, in my situation, you know, I'm a recent grad, loads of debt, you know, trying to stay afloat. I'm living in DC. The housing market here is absolutely crazy in terms of prices. So what do you do, or how do you reconcile the predicament of gentrification, the influx of prices, and the lack of affordable housing with the fact that we need to own homes?
Well, I'll tell you, you're going to have to be patient. You're going to have to use the tools that are out there. There are tools out there now. HUD tried to stop some of them with down payment assistance. We're proponents. We believe in the down payment assistance. If you're patient enough, then something may come up if you're working with a realtist, and they can help you find. And Realtist is a member of my organization, the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, held to a high standard of ethics. So that may help you with gentrification. That may help you find a place where you want to be in the town, in the area, in the zip codes you want to be at, closer to jobs, closer to schools, closer to hospitals and doctors and medical and things like that. But it could be a hard fit. I'm finding that we're having a hard fit. People can't live in the same area they grew up in anymore. Yeah. So I mean, you have to be patient. You have to save, and when it's time to strike, you got to move.
Roland, I have a suggestion that I also have.
All right, folks, real quick, Leo, real quick.
You can also consider, this takes patience, buying property outside of the area, in a nice area outside the area that costs lower, just to establish home ownership and establish that loan, if you will, or however you're going to secure it, so you can have that in your portfolio. And then you build an equity. And you also can buy a property. I only buy properties that somebody's going to rent if I move out because it's in a nice area that they're going to like. So buy a property that you know is going to be temporary for you, but that's in a rentable area that's outside of DC, that's more cost effective, and plan to use that property, particularly when you get the equity and the kind of situation financially you want to be in, to get a property later in Washington, D.C. But at least you own property now.
Got it.
And you got that.
Danelle, 30 seconds. Danelle, 30 seconds, go.
We need you to get on board with HousedInTheCar.com. It's a campaign, it's a movement. We have MOUs with everyone from fraternities, sororities, faith-based institutions. The civic engagement piece with the National Association of Real Estate Brokers is going to be huge. We need you to identify with it. We need you to get on board, and black home ownership matters.
All right, Danelle Williams, we appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, going to a break. When we come back, we'll talk to a bishop of Baltimore. Bishop T.D. Jackson is going to be at his church this weekend on how Baltimore can be restored. Also, we're going to talk about a coach in New Orleans fired for encouraging his team to use the N-word. All of that next. Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from the Potter's House in Denver. We'll be back in a moment. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, folks, that's my frat brother, Gerald Albright, on the saxophone there. He is going to be one of the many folks at the second annual Luxe Jazz Experience taking place in Cabo, November 7th through the 11th. I'll be broadcasting Roland Barton Unfiltered that Thursday and Friday, the 7th and the 8th there. But it's unbelievable. 3 days of crazy concerts, folks. You have the opportunity, if you can't go, first of all, if you want to go, you can get a package. Go to lifeluxejazz.com, LIFELUXEJAZZ.com. But if you can't go, you can still be there by virtue of the live stream. That's right. Get a live streaming pass for $10.99. You get to stream all 3 days of concerts from these amazing artists. As I said, Gerald Albright also will be there. Alex Bougnong, Raul Madan, Incognito, Pieces of a Dream, Kirk Whalum, Average White Band, Donnie McClurkin, Shalea, Roy Ayers, Tom Brown, Ronnie Laws, and Ernest Quarles. All you got to do is go to GFNTV.com. That's GFNTV.com to get your live streaming pass. We want you to do that, folks. It is going to be fantastic. It's going to be a great 3 days. And so I'm certainly looking forward to it. And I want you to be there either in person or via the live stream on GFNTV.com. All right, folks, this weekend, a conference is being held in Baltimore that will feature guest speaker Bishop T.D. Jakes. The goal, to address issues in the restoration in the Baltimore community and change the narrative about how bad things are there. It has been presented by Bmore Now, and the founder of Bmore Now is Bishop James D. Nelson of Destiny Christian Church, and he joins us right now. Bishop, glad to have you here. Here's what is interesting to me. I was just in Baltimore on Saturday. I spoke at the Civil Rights Gala there, and I talked about, of course, the issue of affirmative action, talked about utilizing our dollars, talked about, again, how we also must address HBCUs there. And so what do you say to the people who say, wait a minute, this is a black city. You have black mayor, black city council, school district as well. But when you look at the schools in Baltimore, when you look at the housing condition in Baltimore, you don't see progress. That's what critics say. And so explain to people who will say, well, you know, black folks, y'all running this, you can't run this city, really what is going on here when it comes to the economic calamity that exists in Baltimore that keeps it from being able to help those most in need.
First of all, I was glad to be on the show. Thank you for having me. To those people that would bring up those issues, first of all, there are a couple of dynamics that are at play. Number one, the economics of Baltimore are much lower than even the average in the United States. If you deal with the average household income, it's only about $46,000 in comparison to about $57,000 in the United States. The whole family median income is about $13,000, $14,000 less than it is in the United States. There's a great deal of economic disparity. The unemployment rate is quite high, even though it has gone down about 6%, and it is causing major challenges in the city of Baltimore. And so even with our school systems and the challenges that we're having, all of these factors are playing a role in what is happening in our city. And so we're trying to come up with something that helps to turn that around. And as a matter of fact, one of the partners of Bmore Now just had a major event a couple of weeks ago targeting what's happening in our school system, the lack of male presence in our school system. And so it takes time to turn issues around, and that's what we're after, to make a difference in turning that situation around.
But Bishop, so where do you start? Because what you don't, I mean, obviously you want folks who go to school, who get educated, you want them to be there, you want them to be able to live there as well. But you have sort of this perception. The moment you say Baltimore, oh, it's sort of like it used to be the same thing. You mentioned Detroit, you mentioned certain cities, and so you're dealing with that as well.
Absolutely. Well, it starts with one of the things that we're doing even on tomorrow. This event is not just about hype. It really is about empowering our people and to help to create another narrative for the city of Baltimore. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're starting with employment. We have a job fair tomorrow with employers like Legg Mason, Chase Bank, Amazon, Social Security Administration, the Horseshoe Casino, the Baltimore City Community College. We have voter registration. We also have expungement because in the city of Baltimore, one of the challenges that have been is the rate of recidivism has been very high. It is suggested that within 3 years, about 70% of those that come out of prison will eventually be repeat offenders. So we're trying to counteract that by, number one, bringing hope, showing a different narrative. Many times for the city of Baltimore, they only have one narrative that is seen, that is suggested, and then it doesn't help when the president makes comments that our city is rat infested, it's a mess, and no humans will live there. And so we're endeavoring through a collaborative effort of spiritual and social to bring a different picture, a different narrative to the city of Baltimore, to let them know that Baltimore is more than what people have predicted or suggested that it is.
Kelly, your question.
So what is your, I understand what the objective is per what I've read and what you just said, but going forward, how do you plan on keeping that conversation alive and honestly changing the narrative of Baltimore?
So we have a couple of things that we're doing. Number one, after this event is not designed to just be a moment, but really the birthing of a movement. So we have churches that are coming together as well as other entities in the city of Baltimore partnering to ensure that we continue with what we're doing. So we're doing things like in November for Thanksgiving. That's one of our next major initiatives where we are again offering jobs and health care and then financial education through the partnerships that we are bringing. We're catering to specific areas like the youth of the city and then the seniors of the city of Baltimore. So we're planning to continue it in those ways and then also politically, because we really understand that we need people to get out and vote, because every vote counts, to put the right people in place to ensure that we get the changes that we need. So those are some of the things that we're doing to continue.
I have a question, Bishop Nelson. I first want to thank you for all the work you guys are doing in Baltimore. And it sounds like a Herculean task because you are trying to tend to the whole person. So how can this community support you, even for those who may not be in Baltimore proper, but want to be able to assist? How can folks support your efforts?
Okay, a couple of ways. Number one, partnership, because the whole concept of Bmore Now is synergy or collaboration between social and spiritual. So those are individuals that are that have either employment opportunities, health care, or other entities. Even I just spoke with Donnell that just got off about the housing. So partnerships like that. And then secondarily is financially, because as we are undertaking all of this, it's going to take finances to continue to do what we're doing. Like I said, for the next event that we're doing, we want to give hot food to people as well as food to take home and health care. And then businesses that believe in what we're doing, that don't mind offering even opportunities for employment to give people even second chances.
Thank you.
Bishop,
Cleo?
Yes. I'm based in Baltimore. Okay. I have an office in the Charles Village area. I run a center called the Amasi Center for Black Wellness and Culture.
Okay.
And I often engage students and speak at Morgan State.
Okay.
And as you know, I would imagine that Baltimore is a stigmatized city, but not just externally.
Yes, sir.
It's also stigmatized internally. And there's people there. It's a predominantly black city, almost 70% black. And the list of things that you're going to offer, I think, are all important. But I think there needs to be an addition of looking at mental health and looking at black self-concept. Because one of these symptoms of living in a city and being black that has a stigma, where there's been mayoral problems, you know, the mayor's changing, and that makes it look really bad for black people and certain people's self-concept who live there. There's some low self-esteem challenges that everyday people in Baltimore face. A lot of people that come to my office are challenged by learning to love themselves in their own image as black people in a city that is supposedly black ran that has these problems. So I think while you're going to be dealing with jobs and housing, so that won't just be a Band-Aid that people can relapse from, you might want to add to your pie here, looking at mental distress, resolving mental illness, and self-concept among black people in particular.
Absolutely. Thank you for the suggestion. And that's one of the things as we go forward that we actually are considering. Number one, as a pastor, that's one of the things that I actually am an advocate of that black persona, self-awareness. But as we go forward, that's one of the things that we would definitely include, because as you said, everything that you've named, from the changes of the mayors, even to the corruption with the police and other challenges that we've had, it's affected morale and even self-worth.
That's right.
Because here's the other piece that we have to be honest about. While we can get mad at cops killing and this one doing this, the reality of it is the murders that are happening in Baltimore is happening because blacks are killing each other. And so we have to wake up and start realizing who we are and the power that we have. So as we move forward, that is definitively one of the things that we will include.
Well, I hope to work with you.
I would love to have
Bishop, the conference taking place when? What time?
It is taking place beginning tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. At 4321 Old York Road at the Church of the Redeemed of the Lord tomorrow morning. And it's absolutely free. There is no charge to it.
Are you also going to be live streaming the event?
Yes, we're going to be live streaming from the Facebook of the Church of the Redeemed of the Lord. It's going to be an amazing opportunity. I do want to stress at 10 o'clock we have a financial literacy with Chase Bank, which is one of our partners, and Ivy McGregor is going to be moderating that. And then at 11, Bishop Jakes is going to be preaching.
So the whole day is going to be live streamed?
The service is going to be live streamed. The Chase conversation will not be live streamed.
All right, then. We need to get that live stream.
But you know what?
That's what we also need to have live stream.
That's something we can work on. I can fix that overnight.
Which means it might happen.
I'm telling you, because here's the piece. I mean, do it. I mean, just so understand. Look, I've got 2.4 million social media followers. When you live streaming on the Facebook, then we're able to take that code and actually send it out and share it with all of those followers. And so if somebody's not in Baltimore, if they're in Baltimore, but they're not even there, they still will be able to see the sessions and take advantage of the knowledge. So that'll be great if you can make it happen.
And consider it done.
All right, Bishop, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Folks, going to a break. When we come back, black coach in Louisiana no longer has a job because he encouraged his team to use the N-word. What did my panel have to say about that? Next on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
When in doubt, go to the library. That's what Ron Weasley says in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So I did. To the world's largest library, in fact, the Library of Congress, with a collection of 168 million items, all kinds of treasures from our nation's past and the labor movement's past. Many of the folks who work there are AFSCME members, including David Fernandez Badial, who's agreed to give me a tour of some of the library's most amazing artifacts. Come along with us for a behind-the-scenes look and prepare to be inspired.
Okay, well, show me some of these amazing artifacts, David.
Absolutely. So here we have some treasures from the Manuscript Division of the Library of Congress. Over on the far right, you have notes from 1787 that Alexander Hamilton drafted in preparation for the Constitutional Convention. And they basically outline his vision of government, federal government for the United States.
So this is Alexander Hamilton's handwriting that we have here.
Right.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So tell us about this piece here.
Yeah. So this is a letter from 1941 from Thurgood Marshall, who was working for the NAACP, discussing some of the circumstances of a case in Texas that involved voter rights that would lead into a case that became Smith v. Allwright, which actually was argued before the Supreme Court in 1943, and Thurgood Marshall was the person arguing it in front of the Supreme Court. In many ways, he considered this to be the seminal case that he was involved in that started the movement towards civil rights in this country.
So this was right around the time that Thurgood Marshall really began the legal defense fund of the NAACP and led it and argued many of these cases before the Supreme Court successfully for many years before he joined the court. So
exactly
we got an example of his mental process and thinking through this case. It's really incredible.
Are you ready for the next item?
I am.
All right. So here we have some seminal treasures from the library's collections from the National Child Labor Committee, which was founded to investigate the conditions of children across the country who were engaging in labor and being forced to work from an early age.
So these were pictures with a purpose to really try to make change.
Absolutely.
And to end child labor.
So this is a photograph of Addie Card, taken in Vermont by Lewis Hine, and it's basically showing the conditions in the textile industries in Vermont. And this image is iconic for a number of reasons, but even if you just look at, the young girl, sort of, it's every child, You've got an image of someone who is being forced to do work.
And should not be working.
In 1959, then Senator John Kennedy published this book, A Nation of Immigrants, which talked about the contribution of all these different national and ethnic groups to our American society. And included as part of the original publication was this map of the United States, which breaks down each region by the dominant ethnic or national group that settled there.
And it reminds us that we are a nation of immigrants.
Absolutely.
And Kennedy, when he was a senator, really understood and helped educate us about that reality. And it's a great visual representation.
And one last little piece that we want to show you is this item from 1937. It's the Journal of the State and Local Government Employees, which is the first publication of the AFSCME
National Union.
Minutes.
And you can see, well, it's the record of proceedings, but it's also the publication of the union, I think. And you can see our original logo here. So this is from the very early history of our union, and it lives here in the Rare Books collection at the Library of Congress. I'm so grateful that you've taken the time to show us all of this, and also that it's AFSCME members who curate and care for all of these artifacts and treasures that you've shown me today.
That's right. We represent over 1,400 bargaining unit employees here at the Library of Congress. In fact, we have some of our leadership of the AFSCME locals right next door. Would you like to meet them?
I would love to.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. This is AFSCME at the Library of Congress. All right. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you do every day to make this library happen. And thank you for what you do for working folks who work at the Library of Congress.
All right, folks, interesting stuff. First of all, before I go to the next story, let me thank AFSCME for being one of the partners of Roland Martin Unfiltered. Without their support, this show would not be possible. So Lee Saunders and AFSCME, thank you so very much for believing in black-owned media. All right, folks, let's talk about this story here. Nathaniel Jones, Louisiana high school head football coach at St. Augustine High School, folks, an all-male private school with a predominantly black student body, has been fired after video showed him leading players in a locker room chant that included the N-word. Watch this.
All I got is 2 hands, 2 pads, knocking it loose, knocking it loose. I got 2 hands, 2 pads, this the old, this the old.
All right, folks. First of all, some of y'all, I can't remember if it's St. Augustine or St. Augustine. Okay, I've been in New Orleans, but I've been to the school before. It is a very well-known school with a rich tradition. The chant appeared to be a team tradition under Jones, according to video uploaded to YouTube from prior games this year. Question, Dr. Carter, should he have been fired?
I think it showed a lack of poor judgment. I would never let students of mine speak that way in my presence. I mean, and he's not the first, but that's really up to St. Aug. I mean, we saw this happen to Penny Toller with the LA Sparks, and she's not teaching juveniles, right? She's working with adult women, professional WNBA players. So, I mean, I think you absolutely have to be mindful of where you are and who you're with. You're dealing with young men, and yeah, I mean, I think an argument could be made that he was just trying to get them amped up for the game. They didn't mean it in a negative way, but did you feel a way about the white players who might be on that team saying the same thing? I don't know. I just think we always have to be mindful of what we do, particularly when we're working with young people and what we allow in that space. I can say that if it was probably one of my children, I would not have been thrilled to see this video. I'm sorry. I mean, I think you just have to exercise better judgment.
Kelly.
I agree with Dr. Carter here. I mean, it's one of those things where the word itself has sparked debate as to whether it should be used, shouldn't be used, etc. I'm one of the people who does her best not to use it at all. I feel like it should be removed from American lexicon altogether, mainly because the history of the word is too rooted in insidious history for it to be even repurposed for something different. Considering that this is a school setting, these are, still children, and you have an adult who is, a mentor, a coach, a teacher, a leader, surely you have better words in your vocabulary other than something that is already so controversial. And like Dr. Carter was saying, I don't know the specific demographic makeup of this school, but if there's just one white person on that team, how does that person feel about everybody else using the word except him? Or, him using the word and then, record scratch and everybody's just kind of, just stop like, wait, what did you say? Even though like 90 other people said it, it's just kind of one of those things where it can be hypocritical without intending to be. And considering you're in an educational setting, I would just not say it altogether, save that for home if you're going to use it.
Yep. Cleo?
The N-word is a very harmful, destructive word. It's not even a good idea when black people use the word. It has harmful psychic effects and behavioral outcomes. So I understand that the word is problematic where this brother is, and I agree with what happened. I hope others listen and take the same path. Because even though I'm not sure there's any educational opportunity provided in this context in terms of what's problematic with the word, other than that it's not considered a good word, it's really a problematic word, and we should not be calling ourselves that word. I'm not concerned about the one white boy or girl, whatever, that's there who might use it. I'm concerned about us using it. Mm-hmm. And this man is a leader, or was a leader, a role model, and inadvertently was perpetuating the use of such a disgusting and horrible word, a destructive word. And I think the consequences were appropriate. And again, I hope others watch and learn and do the same thing.
Here's the thing that I need people to understand. This is very simple. If a white coach did the same thing, he would be gone quickly. I keep trying to explain to black folks, look, we have to understand this is a different whole deal. This is not your house. This is not in the privacy of your home. This is not on your own social media page. You're a coach leading a team. I also agree with everything folks say. I don't like the N-word. I don't believe we need to use the N-word. I don't want to hear black people who talk about, no, we're going to drop the ER and we're going to put the A on it and we're going to reclaim it. All BS.
Delusion.
It's all BS. It is a hate word that should not be used. And again, if I want to sit here and talk to somebody black, I would choose a more affirming word. Brother, how are you? Not the N-word. I'm going to do that. And so, look, these are the repercussions that exist. Somebody put on YouTube, they said, who snitched? Y'all, they posted the videos on YouTube. Okay, so other people can see it. But again, this is what happens. Somebody actually said that, who snitched, when they got uploaded. So bottom line is, you can do a chant. Don't use the N-word. It's that simple.
Well, and I mean,
it's that simple.
It's not necessary.
I think it's the simple.
No, it's not necessary. Final word, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I think you're absolutely right. But I think, again, you have to always be mindful that there's a camera everywhere. Mm-hmm. And you're also talking about young men who are going into a football game, which is already adversarial enough. And so that word, to me, was used purposely, right? To not see your opponent as other people, but to see something to be mowed down, knocked down, and have their stuff loose.
Exactly.
Right? So, I mean, I think it was used intentionally. It was poor form,
Right.
and I think we see the results of this behavior resulting in the consequences that should to any educational professional.
And in fact, it wasn't just the head coach. It was an assistant coach who was leading the chant. So 2 assistant coaches and the head coach have all lost their jobs as a result of the using of the N-word. And again, this is historically black Catholic school there in New Orleans. And so that is the case there. And again, the St. Charles issued a statement saying they were launching a full investigation, saying they were shocked and embarrassed that such blatantly offensive language was used at any school event. And of course, the head coach had been there since February 2018, and of course, no longer at the school. All right, folks, congratulations to Abiy Ahmed, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, of course, for winning the Nobel Peace Prize today. Of course, he was the one who led the negotiations that ended the civil war that took place between Ethiopia and neighboring country Eritrea. This has been going on for a number of years, and now they have peace there as a result of this accord. And so congratulations to the Ethiopian Prime Minister for this year's Nobel Peace Prize. Let me thank Cleo Kelly as well as Dr. Niambe Carter for joining us. Doc, y'all got a big weekend. Isn't this Howard homecoming?
You know it. Bowie's homecoming.
Listen, nobody cares about any of these places. It's the real HU's homecoming this weekend. It's HU all day from Tuesday to Sunday.
Okay,
you can find something to do.
Excuse me. I asked Dr. Carter a question. I ain't asked all that other nonsense coming in. So, Dr. Carter, is this not Howard homecoming?
It absolutely is, and it couldn't be a more beautiful weekend. We are celebrating, another 162 years to come. So I wish everybody a happy Howard homecoming, even those people who didn't go there.
So, Kelly, why the hate?
No hate. It's just Bowie State's homecoming, and I care about my alma mater more. Simple as that.
It's everybody's home.
Okay, well,
and they care about Howard's more,
Kelly, it's okay to do 2 shout-outs.
Is it?
I mean, you ain't got to be hating like that.
You called Kelly first, though. You called her first.
Woosah. Kelly, woosah.
That shows
Kelly, woosah,
favoritism.
release all that hate.
There's no hate. My dad went there.
Release all of that hate.
It's fine. It's how.
Release all of that hate. And boss, look, just so you understand, we don't have homecoming at Texas A&M. Our homecoming is every football game, and so that's how we look at it. So we got a big game tomorrow. That's how we do it. So we play Alabama tomorrow. So I'm looking to see Ty get rolled. All right, folks. We want you to support, of course, Roland Martin Unfiltered. We're always doing great things. I'm here in Denver, the Potter's House in Denver for a town hall here for my school choice is the Black Choice Town Hall. Y'all know where I stand. It's real simple. I want every black kid to get educated. I don't care how they get educated, traditional school, charter school, magnet school, online school, home school. It is technical school, doesn't matter, as long as our kids get educated. And so you got some folks here in Denver who say, no, we don't like charter schools. Forget that. I am not going to defend a failing school. I ain't defending a failing traditional school. I'm not defending a failing charter school. I want black kids to get educated. And so if you're in Denver, come to the Potter's House Denver, 6 p.m. in 51 minutes for our town hall that will be taking place here. I'm looking forward to a great conversation. We'll be live streaming it right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered as well. All right, folks, be sure to support what we do by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, joining our Bring the Fuck fan club. Every dollar you give goes to support this show. Things that we do. Last night, being at Reverend Joseph Lowry's 98th birthday. If you missed it, go to our YouTube channel. You can actually check that out. And also, let me thank, thank right here, Angie B. She gave $100 to our fan club right there on YouTube. If you're watching YouTube, you can actually give right there on YouTube. You can go to our website as well. And so we certainly want to thank her. Guys, great thing happening on Monday. Y'all don't want to miss the show. And guess who's going to be here? The judge, Tammy Kemp, the judge in the Amber Geiger case, is going to be right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Looking forward to that conversation. I will have her on the Tom Jonah Morning Show that morning, 7:15 a.m. Eastern. We will have a much longer conversation right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Her husband watches this show religiously. I appreciate the judge's husband watching this show and look forward to talking to her right here on Monday. Y'all have been asking questions? Well, I'm going to be asking those questions Monday. Roland Martin Unfiltered. All right, folks. Oh, Charlotte, I'll see you guys actually tomorrow. I'm at a blogger conference here in D.C. So looking forward to being there. Let's see here. Hold on one second. Let me get the name real quick. Okay, I don't want to mess it up. So again, a blogger conference taking place tomorrow in Washington, D.C. And so looking forward to that conference. I'll be speaking at 4 p.m. at the Blogger Week Unconference taking place at Trinity Washington University. So again, I'll be there from 4 to 5 speaking. And I'm looking forward on Monday, folks. I'm going to be flying in and out. So Monday, I'm going to be giving the keynote speech at noon on Monday on education choice at the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. And so I'll be speaking there on Monday, flying back to do Roland Martin Unfiltered. All right, I got to go. Got to get ready for our town hall. Have an absolutely great weekend. I'll see y'all on Monday. Holla!